Shane Beamer gets the job. And early on, I don't think people would have predicted that, because you heard the normal names come up of the Freezes and the Billy Napiers and the Jamie Chadwells. And, I think we'd all agree it was the right hire. He's our guy. He's crushed the preseason. But your overall impression is they haven't played a game yet. Of course, we're in the honeymoon phase, if you will. Everybody's 0-0, right? Nobody's dropped a pass. Nobody's fumbled the football. Right. Nobody's thrown a pick. Nothing. They haven't hit adversity yet. But You're just overall feelings on him getting the job he's done this preseason. Again, I think we'd all agree he's absolutely crushed the preseason to this point. We're all looking forward to September the 4th. But just overall thoughts on the beginning of the Shane Beamer era, if you will.
Well, I can tell you this, and a lot of times coaches don't do this. So, Coach Wren, he called me and says, this is one of our, ideal candidates. And Shane Beamer, and he's going to call you. And he reached out to me, I would say 2 or 3 times, just to have conversations, about the past, the present, where you think the program can go. The biggest thing about Coach Beamer is he wanted to be here. Okay, he wanted to be at South Carolina, and truly, this is his dream job. Like, this is where he wanted to be. He grew up, I think, Charleston, and then he coached here before. He understands the dynamics of recruiting in South Carolina. He understands the challenges of recruiting at South Carolina. And so I think that was the biggest difference. And then he did reach out to a ton of former Letterman, which is, that goes a long ways,
right.
As you earn the respect of all the former players, the fans, it gets out to the fans. So I think the fact that he did that, there's a lot of coaches that do not do that. Their agents get involved, and then it becomes just agents talking to presidents and ADs who, some of them know nothing about football. Right. And so I think there was a lot of voices involved that knew a lot about football that said, he's our guy. So he did a fantastic job of that. What I've seen so far through spring practice and preseason are a bunch of guys who have bought in, and a bunch of guys that are working their tails off. And, obviously, there's some holes there. We've got to make some improvement. We got a lot of great players right now. We got a lot of NFL players on that roster. Okay. But I think just the fact that they bought into it, there's a lot of things to be optimistic about for the future.
What's interesting, Phil, and you can tell me if you'd agree or not, but when I think about it even more so, I feel like there are a lot of similarities between this year's team and that 2000 team. And maybe they're not coming off a 1-21. It's not quite as, but I mean, certainly we're in turmoil last year. I mean, 2-8, and you've won 6 games the last 2 years, and nobody's really expecting anything of you. And like you mentioned, there is talent on this year's group. But again, the expectations are, especially nationally, are very, 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 very low. I mean, Vegas has got you at the over under 3.5, which I think is absolutely insane. But either way, that's where it is. But I don't know. Would you agree? I think there's a lot of similarities between those two groups. I mean, maybe a little bit of a, unproven quarterback, if you will. I mean, there's the more I think about it, I feel like there's a lot of similarities between those two.
I think talent-wise, there's a lot of similarities. I think the biggest right now, I think that you got a lot of guys who haven't played maybe quite as much football yet, but that'll come. And you've got some experience. We've got guys that played a lot of football, but we've got a lot of young guys. Even our the 2 or 3 running backs we've got. Our quarterback. I mean, we've got our defensive line. They're still, fairly young. I mean, you've got a lot of talent there that's very similar. But I think the level of experience is probably the only difference I would say, because, I don't want to set expectations for anybody. I hope they win every game, and maybe they will, but if they don't, it's only going to get better. And that's what fans have to understand. This is a process. Everybody wants the prize. Nobody wants the process. And it is a process. And so we've got to give Coach Beamer and those players time. Talent is going to be there. It is there now, and it's only going to get better. But I think that just having that level of experience in the Southeastern Conference, which is the greatest conference in the country, it does factor into it. So that would be probably the only difference. Not saying that they won't. I hope they surpass everything that we did, and I think they eventually will. Whether it be this year or not, I don't know.